The conversation started innocently enough at Sunday dinner. The way it always did, before these gatherings, slipped into quiet competitions and soft, sharp criticisms. Sarah had spent the first 20 minutes proudly flipping through photos of her latest home improvement project. A kitchen renovation, marble countertops, custom cabinets, and the backsplash she'd been dreaming about for months. "It's amazing what home ownership allows you to do," she said, scrolling through her phone to show yet another angle of her pristine granite surfaces. "The equity just keeps building month after month, unlike some people who throw money away on rent every single month with nothing to show for it." Mom passed the potatoes and nodded in glowing approval, her face bright with maternal pride. Sarah had always been the smart one with money, practical, focused on long-term investments, always thinking ahead. I kept eating quietly, the way I always did when those subtle digs about my financial shortcomings floated across the table. To the family, I was the underachiever, the one working at what they assumed was a small consulting firm, driving a modest 3-year-old Honda Civic, living in what they believed was a rental apartment in a less prestigious neighborhood. "Speaking of rent," Dad said, cutting his steak a little harder than necessary, "maybe it's time you started thinking seriously about your future, Emma. You can't rent forever like some college student. At 29, most successful people are building equity and investing in real estate, not paying someone else's mortgage month after month." Sarah leaned back in her chair with a satisfied smile, fully enjoying her moment as the financially successful sibling. "I mean, I totally get it. Not everyone has the credit score or down payment saved for property ownership. Requirements are steep these days. But there are first-time buyer programs, even for people in your particular situation." The condescension dripped from every carefully polished word. Sarah had always positioned herself as the accomplished one, the sister who planned her life perfectly and executed it flawlessly. Graduating business school with honors, landing a prestigious marketing job at a major pharmaceutical company, buying her first house at 26, through what she swore was careful planning and disciplined saving. And then there was me, just Emma, quiet, tucked in the background, never seeming to rise very far professionally, and apparently content with a modest lifestyle that looked, at least to them, like underachievement. "The housing market is incredibly competitive right now," Uncle Robert added from across the table, always ready to contribute when the topic was my shortcomings. "You need substantial income, perfect credit, a significant down payment. It's definitely not for everyone. Some people just aren't cut out for that level of financial responsibility." I nodded politely and took another bite of green beans, my standard reaction to these weekly evaluations of my life. "You're all probably right about that," I murmured. "Don't get me wrong," Sarah continued, still soaking in the spotlight. "There's absolutely nothing wrong with renting. Some people just aren't cut out for the responsibilities of home ownership. The constant maintenance, the property taxes, the insurance premiums, the HOA fees, it's a lot to handle. It takes a certain level of financial sophistication." Mom reached over and patted my hand softly, her expression a mix of concern and disappointment. "Maybe you could start small, honey. A little condo or townhouse. Something manageable. Work your way up gradually." "If she can even qualify for a mortgage," Dad muttered, loud enough for the whole room to hear. Dinner drifted on for another hour and a half, filled with more stories about Sarah's home upgrades, her promotion to senior marketing manager, and her ambitious 5-year plan to upgrade to an even bigger house. 3-car garage, swimming pool, the whole list. I listened quietly, nodding when spoken to, holding the same role I had played for years. When we started clearing dishes and setting up dessert, Sarah found me in the kitchen while the rest moved to the living room. "I hope you don't take what Dad said too personally," she said gently. "He just wants to see you succeed and build something meaningful. We all do, really." "I know," I replied, methodically rinsing plates and loading the dishwasher. "If you ever want advice about getting pre-approved for a mortgage or connecting with a real estate agent, I'm totally happy to help. I know this amazing woman. She specializes in helping first-time buyers, especially those working with more limited budgets. She's patient, very understanding about different financial situations." I smiled and thanked her for the offer, keeping the practiced facade I'd worn for years. The drive home gave me the quiet space to think about the evening and the familiar patterns that always played out. None of this was new. These dinners followed the same script every time. Sarah displayed her latest achievement, the family praised her brilliance, and I sat quietly while they discussed my lack of ambition and questionable life choices. But what they didn't know, what absolutely none of them had any idea about, was that I had been paying Sarah's mortgage for the past 2 years. It had started small, almost harmless, the way these things do. About 18 months after buying her house, Sarah called me in tears. Her marketing job wasn't as stable as she believed. The pharmaceutical company was restructuring. Her entire department was being eliminated. She was facing a 3-month gap in employment while she searched for something new. "I don't know what I'm going to do, Emma," she sobbed into the phone, her voice cracking with desperation. "The mortgage payment is $3,200 every month, and I've only got enough savings for maybe 6 weeks, 8 if I really stretch it. I can't lose this house. Not after everything I went through to get it. All the sacrifice and planning." She begged me not to tell the family. Her entire identity, being the successful sister, was everything to her. The foundation of her role in our family dynamic. And the thought of dad or mom knowing she couldn't afford her mortgage payments were absolutely unbearable to her. So I helped. At first, it felt like a temporary solution to a short-term crisis. I set up a monthly automatic transfer from my business account to hers, covering her $3,200 mortgage payment while she focused on finding new employment. It was supposed to be a brief arrangement, just until she got back on her feet and could resume normal payments. But then she found a new job that paid significantly less than her previous position. The marketing role at a smaller biotechnology company offered better long-term stability and growth potential, but it came with a substantial $30,000 annual pay cut that made her mortgage payments completely unmanageable on her new salary. She kept the house by continuing to accept my monthly payments, which she now framed as a temporary loan that she'd definitely pay back once her financial situation improved and she either got promoted or found a higher-paying position elsewhere. That was over a year ago, and the payments had continued every month without interruption. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on me. While Sarah delivered lectures about building equity and the long-term benefits of home ownership, I was literally financing her version of the American dream. Every month, I transferred $3,200 to keep her afloat financially, while she basked in the family's admiration for her supposed financial success and planning capabilities. The consulting firm I supposedly worked for was actually a cover for my real business, a property management company that I'd built from the ground up over the past 5 years. I owned 17 rental properties scattered across the city, generating enough passive income that I could afford to subsidize my sister's lifestyle, without significantly affecting my own financial stability or long-term investment plans. But explaining that reality would require revealing the entire web of lies and assumptions that had become the foundation of our family dynamic. Sarah couldn't admit she was struggling financially without destroying her carefully maintained image. And I'd grown tired of trying to prove myself to people who'd already decided I was the family disappointment. Monday morning brought my usual routine of reviewing rental income reports and maintenance schedules. I checked the overnight email from my property manager, Janet, who handled most of the day-to-day operations while I focused on acquisitions and strategic planning. My 17 properties were performing well, with occupancy rates above 95% and rental income continuing to increase with market rates. The Riverside property is getting multiple applications from qualified tenants, Janet reported during our weekly call. 3 different candidates, all offering above the listed rent. We could probably get $2,800 instead of the advertised $2,600, maybe even $2,900 if we're selective. I approved the increase and moved on to reviewing expense reports for recent renovations on a duplex downtown. Business was thriving, better than thriving, actually. The strong real estate market meant my properties were appreciating in value, while generating steady rental income that I reinvested in additional acquisitions. My phone buzzed with a text message from Sarah. Thanks again for dinner last night. Mom absolutely loved seeing the whole family together like that. By the way, I'm super excited about the new backsplash. Already thinking about redoing the master bathroom next. You know how home improvement projects go. There's always something else to update. Smiling face with smiling eyes, I stared at the message for a long moment, processing the casual tone and the mention of another expensive renovation project. The bathroom upgrade would probably cost another $15,000 to $20,000, money she didn't have that would inevitably be financed through credit cards or personal loans that she'd struggle to repay on her reduced salary. That evening, I made a decision that had been building in my mind for months. I called Janet first, my voice steady and businesslike. I need you to stop processing the monthly payment from Sarah Matthews for the Riverside property effective immediately. The $3,200 monthly transfer that's been coming through automatically. Are you sure about this? She asked. I can set up a different payment method if there's an issue with the current banking setup. No, I said firmly, my decision crystallizing as I spoke. Stop accepting any payments from her entirely, starting next month. Janet was confused, but maintained her professional demeanor. Understood completely. Should I send formal notice about the payment discontinuation, or will you be handling all communications directly? I'll handle all notifications myself. Next, I called my accountant to discuss the tax implications of discontinuing the arrangement. The monthly payments to Sarah had been structured as family loans rather than rental income, which simplified the documentation and reporting requirements. The hardest call was to Sarah herself. Emma, what's up? She answered cheerfully, her voice bright with the confidence of someone who believed her financial support was guaranteed indefinitely. We need to talk about the monthly mortgage payments, I said without any preamble or small talk. Her voice immediately became cautious and uncertain. What about them? Is there some kind of problem with the transfer system? They're stopping. Next month will be the last payment. Silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds, broken only by the sound of Sarah's breathing becoming more rapid and shallow. What do you mean stopping? Emma, I can't. You know I can't afford the full mortgage payment on my own. My current salary isn't nearly enough to cover it, plus all the other monthly expenses. I thought we had an understanding, an arrangement that worked for both of us. We did have an arrangement for 24 months, but I can't continue subsidizing your lifestyle indefinitely. But I'm finally starting to get ahead financially, she protested, her voice rising with desperation. The bathroom renovation will add significant value to the house. It's a smart investment that will pay for itself. And I'm really hoping for a promotion next year that could bump my salary back up to where it was before, maybe even higher. I listened patiently as she explained why this particular moment wasn't good timing, how she just needed a few more months to get everything properly sorted out and stabilized. The same explanations and promises I'd been hearing for 24 consecutive months. Sarah, I can't keep subsidizing your mortgage while you lecture me about financial responsibility and the importance of building equity. What are you talking about? I never lecture you about money or anything like that. Last night at dinner, you spent over an hour explaining why I should buy property and build equity instead of throwing money away on rent every month. Another long pause settled in as the implication sank in. That's completely different though, she whispered. I was just trying to be supportive and helpful. Give you some friendly advice based on my own experience. Advice about home ownership and building wealth, while I pay your mortgage every month. Her voice shrank, becoming smaller, more defensive. You know I appreciate everything you've done for me. I can't lose this house, Emma. It would absolutely destroy me professionally and personally. And if the family found out that I've been struggling financially, that I couldn't actually afford this place on my own, that's not my problem to solve anymore. The conversation ended badly, with Sarah crying and making increasingly desperate promises about revised repayment schedules and more realistic timelines for financial independence. I felt guilty about her distress, but also relieved that the charade was finally ending. The pretense had gone on far too long. 3 days later, Sarah called an emergency family meeting. I need to tell everyone something really important, she announced when we gathered at Mom and Dad's house Thursday evening. Her eyes were red-rimmed from crying, and she looked like she hadn't slept much over the past few days. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Mom asked immediately, her instincts firing the moment she saw Sarah's condition. Sarah took a shaky breath and looked around the room at all of us. "I've been having some serious financial difficulties, more significant than I've let on to anyone. The truth is, I can't afford my mortgage payments on my current salary, and I've been getting financial help to keep the house." Dad leaned forward, concern turning slowly into confusion. "What kind of help? Second mortgage? A personal loan from the bank?" "Emma has been paying my entire mortgage for the past 2 years." The room went silent, the kind of silence that feels like the air itself has collapsed. Uncle Robert was the first to speak. "Emma? Emma, the one who?" I nodded calmly, meeting his incredulous stare. The monthly payments were $3,200. I've been covering her complete housing costs since she lost her first job after buying the house. "But you don't even," Dad began, then stopped himself as he realized what he was about to say. "Own property, have a successful career, make enough money to help anyone else." I filled in the blanks he couldn't finish. "Right." Mom looked stunned, as if the foundation of our family's assumptions had been pulled out from under her. "How could you possibly afford to pay Sarah's mortgage? Your job at that little consulting firm?" "My consulting firm manages $12 million in residential real estate assets. I personally own 17 rental properties throughout the city. Sarah's mortgage payment represents approximately 8% of my monthly rental income." The revelation hit the room like an explosion. Sarah was crying quietly now, humiliated by the public exposure of her financial dependence. Dad's face shifted through several shades as he tried to process everything that contradicted what he thought he knew. 17 properties, Uncle Robert repeated weakly, like the words themselves might rearrange his understanding. "Started with a duplex 5 years ago. Used the rental income to qualify for investor loans on additional properties. Pretty standard wealth-building strategy in real estate investment." Janet had prepared a portfolio summary exactly for situations like this. One clean page with property locations, acquisition dates, market values, and monthly rental income. I pulled it from my purse and placed it on the coffee table. Dad picked it up with shaking hands. "This says your properties are worth over $4, $2 million in total. Current market assessment," I confirmed matter-of-factly, "though property values have been rising pretty consistently over the past 18 months, so that number is probably conservative." Sarah wiped her eyes again, now balancing embarrassment with a flicker of resentment. "I never meant for it to go on this long. I kept thinking I'd get a better job or a significant promotion or something that would let me pay Emma back and handle the mortgage payments myself." "Why didn't you tell us Emma was helping you financially?" Mom asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because you all think she's the family failure," Sarah snapped, her embarrassment boiling into defensive anger. "Every single family dinner is about how successful I am and how Emma needs to get her life together and start making better choices. How was I supposed to explain that this successful sister needed financial support from the unsuccessful one?" The room fell quiet again, absorbing the full weight of the truth. "So when you've been giving me advice about building equity and buying property," I said to Sarah, letting the unfinished sentence hang between us. "I know exactly how it sounds," she said miserably. I wanted to keep up the image, you know? I worked so incredibly hard to buy that house. And when I couldn't afford it anymore, I couldn't bear to admit failure to everyone." Dad cleared his throat awkwardly. "Emma, I owe you a serious apology. We all do. We've been completely wrong about your situation for years." "Wrong about a lot of things," I agreed, keeping my voice calm and measured. "But why didn't you ever say anything?" Mom asked, genuinely confused. "All these years of us thinking you were struggling financially, making assumptions about your career, because it didn't matter what any of you thought about my success. I didn't need your approval or recognition to build a profitable business. But I did get tired of funding Sarah's lifestyle while she lectured me about financial responsibility. Uncle Robert was still staring at the portfolio summary. You've been carrying all of this financial success quietly for years while you what? I asked. Made assumptions? Offered unsolicited advice? Treated me like the family disappointment? I shrugged. Real estate investment isn't particularly dramatic or exciting. You buy properties, maintain them properly, collect rent, and reinvest the profits. It's boring and steady, which doesn't make for exciting dinner conversation. Sarah looked up from her tissues. What happens now with the house? I mean, that's your problem to solve, I said firmly. You have 30 days to figure out how to cover your mortgage payment without my financial support. I can't afford it on my current salary. You know that's impossible. Then sell the house. Downsize to something you can actually afford on your income, or find a way to increase your earnings. But I'm not subsidizing your lifestyle anymore. The family meeting ended in a thick cloud of uncomfortable silence, the kind where everyone keeps glancing at each other, but no one really knows what to say. There were apologies, soft, hesitant, and more obligatory than sincere. Dad promised he'd try to be more supportive and less judgmental. Mom insisted she'd always believed in my potential, despite all the evidence to the contrary. And Uncle Robert, in a twist of irony, asked for investment advice after years of warning me about my financial prospects. In the weeks that followed, Sarah began exploring her options with a kind of growing desperation. She put the house on the market and started searching for smaller condos and townhouses, places that actually matched her budget. The elaborate bathroom renovation plans disappeared quietly, along with a handful of other home improvement projects she used to brag about. But the hardest part for her wasn't selling the house. It was accepting the truth, living within her actual means. For 2 full years, my financial support had allowed her to live a lifestyle she simply couldn't afford alone. And without that safety net, she had to face real choices she'd been avoiding. At the next family dinner, the energy was completely different. Gone were the days of Sarah showing off expensive projects and giving everyone financial advice. Now, the conversation revolved around her house hunting process, her plans to downsize, and how she was trying to rebuild from the ground up. Dad asked thoughtful questions about my real estate operations. Mom leaned in, genuinely wanting to understand how I'd built such a successful portfolio so quietly. I still can't believe you never said anything about your success, Sarah admitted over dessert, her voice carrying equal parts admiration and resentment. All those times we made comments about your career prospects or your apartment. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment because I don't need much personal space, I explained calmly. My money goes toward acquiring income-producing assets, not lifestyle inflation or impressing other people. But you could afford a much nicer place, she said. A luxury condo or a house. I could afford a lot of things, I told her. That doesn't mean I should buy them just because I can. That evening felt different, more honest, less like a performance. Instead of subtle competition and quiet judgment, there was curiosity, real curiosity. And Sarah, though still adjusting to her new reality, seemed almost relieved. No more pretending. No more financial illusions. A month later, she found a buyer for the house and purchased a smaller condo, something comfortably within her budget. The equity paid off her credit card debt and left her with a modest emergency fund. It's actually really nice, she said when I helped her move. Smaller, obviously, but I don't have to constantly worry about affording the monthly payments. And no more pretending to be something I'm not financially. The family dynamic kept shifting in unexpected ways. Dad now asked for my insight on investments. Mom genuinely wanted to understand how I'd built my business. Even Uncle Robert, once the loudest critic, had become almost deferential. But the biggest change was with Sarah. Without the weight of financial dependence or the need to uphold an illusion, we could finally be honest with each other. She focused on rebuilding her stability. I focused on learning how to communicate my successes without shrinking myself. Sunday dinners transformed into balanced conversations. Everyone contributing, everyone listening. Sarah openly talked about job hunting for better pay. I shared updates on property acquisitions and market trends. I still feel absolutely terrible about all those years of taking your money while criticizing your life choices, Sarah confessed months later during a quiet moment. It taught me something, I said. Family support shouldn't come with strings, but it also shouldn't enable people to avoid facing reality forever. Looking back, those 2 years of secret financial support had been manageable financially, but emotionally draining. Still, they taught me the difference between helping someone in crisis and funding a lifestyle they couldn't sustain. Sarah's house sale closed on a Tuesday in November. That night, she texted me. First mortgage payment on the condo, paid entirely from my own account. Feels absolutely amazing. Thank you for everything you did and for finally saying no when you needed to. Her message felt like the closing of a long chapter, one that had shaped our relationship for years. She was learning to live within her means. I was learning to protect my boundaries. And the family, finally, was seeing everyone as they truly were, not as they pretended to be. No more assumptions based on lifestyle. No more lectures from someone drowning in debt. And no more monthly transfers to maintain an illusion of prosperity. While I stood, labeled the family disappointment. That ending, finally, felt worth celebrating.